Howdy guys, now you were wanting to carve pictures. Well, seeing as how you've been working with the V-bits and doing a lot of V-carving, we'll kind of start with images that can be V-carved. Now where do you get the images? Google is your friend. I use Firefox, but go to whatever web browser you have and just go to Google. In Google, I'm going to look up, let's see, we'll look up Eagle clip art. Now if you use clip art or clip art black and white, we don't really have to use black and white, but it basically it's going to give you something that works really well with V carving. But we're just going to stick with Eagle clip art for right now. Actually, that's one word, isn't it? There we go. So now we're going to take that and enter, and we're going to go here to images. I'm using Firefox, but for the most part, your web browser should be the same. You go to images, and that's going to give us all the pictures. Now, when we're in these pictures, if you hover over one, you can see that it tells you the size. This is 500 by 581 pixels. The more pixels, the bigger it is, the better it's going to work for us. We can use a small one, but it's better to go big. So we're going to click on here, on this one. It'll get us our tools, and we're going to tell it we want large images. So let's go find one that looks kind of cool. Right here. You know, this is kind of tribal looking. It's more of a, almost like a, that's a line drawing, but something like this or this has a little more body to it, a little more thickness. So that's pretty cool. But let's go with this one here. So I'm going to select that. It'll take me to this page. I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to save the image. I'm just going to save it to the desktop, and I'm going to change the name of it to Eagle Head. That'll work. Alright, so now we have our image. Now we're going to open up our Aspire or VCarve Desktop or VCarve Pro, whichever one that you're using. Create a new file, and we'll go 16 by 10, maybe 16 by 12, no, 16 by 8. I want more. Yeah, that looks good. I like more rectangular for this particular one. Not that I'm doing anything special, but just kind of thinking more of a sign type of thing. Okay, so I'm using a 16 by 8 workpiece, 3/4 of an inch thick. I'll zero again from the material surface, the top of my workpiece. Again, for my artwork, I prefer to start with my datum position in the center. You can always switch it when you go over to do your tool paths. I'm going to set this for high. Well, actually, I'll set it for medium for my computer. I can use it in high, but I'd rather have it go quick, and I'm using screen capture software, so it may slow things down a little bit. And we're going to set this for light oak. And okay. So you know how to do all of that stuff. So here we are in our workspace. Now if you come up here, you've got this little folder with the little bird picture in it. Keep that bird in mind, because that bird's going to be your buddy. So we're going to click on this. Now this says import. If you look at the tool pop-up, it says import bitmap for tracing. A bitmap is a image file like a JPEG or a PNG or a TIFF or a TRG, a target file. Those are all bitmap images, and a bitmap image, if you enlarge it and keep enlarging it, it becomes little square dots of color. Okay? A vector image is mathematical. So you can keep enlarging a vector image and it will always stay the same. You could make it as big as a house and it'll still stay the same because it's all mathematic, and computers understand math way better than they understand little dots of color. So what we have to do is we're going to import this image and we're going to convert it from little dots of color to mathematical lines. That's a lot of work, but the computer's going to do all the work for you. All you have to do is bring in your image, which is going to be this one. So we're going to import bitmap. We're going to click on this. We're going to go to our desktop because that's where we saved our image to. And we named it Eagle Head, and it's a .png file. So we're going to open that up. That's a pretty good size file. Now we're not going to use it this big, but we might as well start with it this big because that's how big it came in. So that's going to be cool for right now. Now what we're going to do, remember I said you're going to remember this little bird that's on here, the little bird head? Well, we're going to follow that bird down to here. What this is trace bitmaps. So we have this is not selected. Now it's selected. We want to make sure it's selected. You'll have your magenta line going around it, and it'll be much darker. And we're going to click on this bird. Now when we do that, it fades it out, which is fine. This image is a black and white image, and we could use color or black and white. It doesn't really matter, but for this one, might as well use black and white because that's what our image is. We'll just keep this at the default because it is black and white and it's a nice crisp image. We don't have to worry about anything there. We're going to look down here, our corner fit, because we do have sharp corners and square edges. We want to keep those tight. Our noise filter, there's really no noise in this. This is a nice big image. That's why you want to kind of go bigger because you don't have to worry about little jaggedy edges or anything like that. So we're set there. We don't have to mess with that. Our fading, if that eagle head is a little too light for you to see, you can make it really light or you can make it much bolder. So we're going to keep it there. Now the reason you can fade it out is sometimes there may be something, a lighter color over this you're trying to get rid of, and by fading it down you can kind of make it disappear. So we're going to keep this right about the middle there. We're going to click on preview. Once we click on preview, you'll notice now we have outlines around that. And that looks really good. They follow right around those dark spots, right around all the black that's our image. Okay, so we're going to apply this now. We just previewed it. Now we're going to apply it to make it permanent, and we're going to close that out. Now when we brought that bitmap image in, if you come up to your layers and you look, it put the bitmap on its own layer. So the picture file is on its own layer. We can turn that off because we're done with it. You know, we can save it to use it for a different project, but for right now, for this project, we don't need it. Now all we are left with is our outline, and that's our vector stuff. So we're going to make sure that our vector images layer is selected, and we're good. Okay, so we're on layer 1, and that's our image there. So we're going to check this, and now we have it. It's all grouped. Now let's say we wanted to get rid of a part of this, and say we didn't like this particular piece being in there. We would come over and we would, here's our group and ungroup. Right now this is a group. Okay, and we can tell because when we select it, it's a solid magenta line. Now if I click this and ungroup it, now if I click just one of these, it's saying there's multiple images on here and they're not in a group. But we want to keep this as a group because we want to resize it. So we're going to select it all. And once we group it, we're back to that solid magenta line. Okay, so that's safe. If by chance, let's say we had this, we select this, and we move it, well, we've only moved that part. We don't want to do that. So I'm going to hold control, touch Z, move it back. Now we're going to select everything, and because I'm going left to right, I'm going to box select make sure every part of it is within the box. Click on that, and now I'm going to group it back up. So now I can select it, and I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to shrink it down. We'll say about that big. I'm going to move it over to this side, and I'm going to center it. Wow, that was a pretty good move. Didn't look like it moved much after I centered it. I'm going to center it top to bottom to this side. And now I will go, let's say, I'll hit some text. And we'll say, we'll go to one of my old fighter squadrons first. We'll do the first fighter squadron. We'll go back to true type fonts. And obviously this is too big right now. Or actually it may not be too big. Let's see what we can delete that. Return that. Yeah, it's still a little bit too big. Oh, and I messed that up, didn't I? So let's take this down to 1.5. And let me fix this up here. I had the shift key pushed. And that looks like it'll be good. So I'm going to close this out. And I'm going to move this over here. And again, I'm going to center top to bottom. And that looks pretty cool. And this works because the first fighter squadron was an F-15's fighter squadron. And the F-15s are the F-15 Eagle. Just a little trivia knowledge there for you. Okay, so now we have that. And let's say this is our sign. This is what we want to make. So now I'm going to select everything. I'm going to come to my toolpath side. And I'm going to V-carve all of it. Now, I don't think I'm going to have to worry about a flat depth here, so I'm going to uncheck flat depth. We're going to use a 90-degree half-inch. And everything looks good. And I'm going to leave this at the default name. You know I usually don't leave that like that, but for this one I'm going to calculate it out. And then we're going to, it's all selected here, so we're going to come up to preview. And away it goes. And there we go. We have our first fighter squadron V-carved very nicely. And the eagle head is V-carved really nicely in there. And that turned out really cool. So once I did this, I would cut it down to final size if it wasn't already there, and then probably do an OG or a rounded edge, and I would just hit that off on the router table rather than take the time to do it on the CNC. I could do it on the CNC, but much quicker. I could have a second one being cut while I'm routing this and sanding it, and save some time. But that would look really nice.